declaring the 8th edition of the Nigeria International Energy Summit open in Abuja. The 2025 summit has its theme as Bridging Continents, Connecting Investors Worldwide with Africa's Energy Potential. Represented by the Minister of State for Finance, Dr. Doris Uzoka Anite, Tinubu said the move had also fostered a stronger and more stable domestic market. He added that in 2025, the country had continued witnessing a renaissance in the oil and gas sector, characterized by transformative initiatives and significant milestones. He said for close to 2 years, his administration had remained resolute in driving reforms and milestones in Nigeria's energy sector and the economy at large. He said these reforms, including the removal of the fuel subsidy and forex liberalization, which were two main reforms of the administration in the first year, had liberalized the economy, making it an investment destination of choice. We take another short break. When we return, we bring you foreign news. Stay with us. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, you're watching Biscon TV News. Now to foreign news. A South African court has dismissed claims of a white genocide in the country as clearly imagined and not real, undermining claims made by US President Donald Trump and his advisor, Elon Musk. The ruling came as the court blocked a wealthy benefactor's donation to white supremacist group Boer Legion. Grantland Michael Bray wanted to bequeath $2.1 million to the group to help it further its messages of racial hatred and separation. But the court ruled this request was invalid, vague, and contrary to public policy. Trump has referred to the large-scale killing of farmers in South Africa, while Musk has condemned what he said were racist ownership laws and previously condemned the genocide of white people. Despite vowing to crack down on immigration, Trump has said that white South African farmers would be allowed to settle in the US as refugees because of the persecution he said they faced. Musk, on his part, was born and grew up in South Africa before moving to the US. The Boer Legion describes itself as a civil defense movement that enables citizens to resist the promised slaughter of whites in Republic of South Africa, as well as the theft of their property. You're watching Biscon TV News. The news continues shortly. Welcome back. You're watching Biscon TV News. Now to sports news. The Nigerians in Diaspora Commission, NIDCOM, and Super Eagles star Ahmed Musa have called for an investigation into the death of footballer Abubakar Lawal, who allegedly fell to death in Uganda. Lawal was reported dead on Monday, with the Ugandan police saying the Sokoto-born player died after falling from a shopping mall. Hours after the sad incident, the chairman of NIDCOM, Abike Dabiri Erewa, described Lawal's death as suspicious. In her words, she said, "This is pathetic and appears suspicious. We demand a thorough investigation. No cover-up at all. This is so sad," she wrote in a post on her X handle on Tuesday afternoon. At NIDCOM will ensure and demand a thorough and transparent investigation. May his soul rest in peace, and God give the family the fortitude to bear this loss, she added. Initial reports had indicated that the Nigerian player who features for Viper in the Ugandan league had an accident, but he was later said to have passed on after falling from a balcony. According to Musa, the contradictory reports about Lawal's death call for concern. The footballer wants the Nigerian and Ugandan authorities to get justice for Lawal. The 29-year-old striker had been visiting a Tanzanian friend staying in one of the residential apartments that form part of the mall. The friend told police she had left him alone shortly before the fall. Authorities are retrieving CCTV footage and conducting thorough interrogations to establish the exact circumstances surrounding the incident, Ugandan police said in a statement on Monday. We take another short break, and when we return, we bring you entertainment news. Stay with us. Welcome back. Now to entertainment news. The makers of Breath of Life, Nemsia Studios, have released the official trailer for a new project, Suki, premiering on Prime Video on March 7, 2025. After the success of Breath of Life, Nemsia Studios is back with another highly anticipated film, Suki, an intense, action-packed drama that delves into the brutal underground world of Dambe boxing. Directed by Ola Cardoso and produced by Bamidele Adelusi, Suki is set to premiere exclusively on Prime Video on March 7, 2024. The film boasts an impressive ensemble cast, including James Damilare, Toby Bakari, Olarotimi Fakunle, Femi Adebayo, Bimbo Ademoye, Ibrahim Yakini, and Boma Akpore, promising a gripping cinematic experience filled with raw emotion, high-stakes action, and cultural depth. According to director Ola Cardoso, Suki is more than just a combat-driven thriller. It's a story about the inner struggles of manhood, vengeance, and redemption. Co-founder of Nemsia Studios, Bibi Sashore, further emphasizes the film's impact on the evolving Nollywood landscape, calling it a bold and unapologetically raw cinematic experience. We take another short break, and when we come back, we'll bring you the rest of the news. Stay with us. Welcome back to Biscon TV News. Now to the major points of the news. On the national scene, Abia to arrest pupils and punish parents over truancy. Remove tax bill sections conflicting with Sharia, NSCIA urges Senate. In business news, Naira crude sales boost local refineries, cut FX risks, says Tinubu. On the foreign scene, claims of white genocide not real, South African court rules. And in sports, no cover-up, NIDCOM and Musa demand probe of Nigerian player's death in Uganda. And that's the news on Biscon Television. We leave you now with the last line. George Orwell said, in times of universal deceit, telling the truth will be a revolutionary act. I'm Stella Opara. Thank you for watching.
Hello folks, welcome to another program in the series Citizen Jones Today. What we do here is simple. Interrogate issues that get thrown up by my country, your country, just so you know. We give context and clarity to it. Today, the June 12 saga and a retired general's 32-year-old uncertainty. welcome. You know, to a 32-year-old Nigerian, the June 12 saga is an old fable meant to get Nigerians talking as usual. But to those of us who voted, lived, and savored the event, the June 12, 1993 presidential election was a watershed event that makes a mockery of what we call an election today. A self-styled military president, the one who announced himself as the evil genius, superintended the conundrum known as the June 12 annulment. For the records, the poll, as IBB admitted in his A Journey in Service, was without a doubt a most free, credible, and acceptable exercise in our checkered history. The hero of that epoch was the late 83-year-old civil servant and political scientist, Professor Humphrey Nwosu. Did he get any mention in the Babangida's memoirs that reportedly raked in over 17 billion naira? That it has taken the author 32 long years before scripting his own side must be the tale of a man who craves inner peace in his twilight days. Shall we give context and clarity to this story? My guests today lived through the exercise, so they know what I'm talking about. In no particular order, we meet and greet journalist, administrator, Martins Onoja. Martins, I greet you.
Yes, thank you.
Martins is joined by good governance advocate, the one we know as agitator, Nelson Ekujimi. Nelson, I greet you.
Good day, Citizen Jones. Good day, viewers.
Yeah, Nelson, let me start with you. You were in the trench. You were in the trench following the June 12 annulment.
Yeah.
How do you give us an overview? How do you look back?
Well, I look back with pain, with agony, with regrets.
Any room for forgiveness, yeah?
I think to err is human, to forgive is divine. And for me, I was a young man. Today, I'm in my mid-50s. Then during the June 12 saga, I was in my early 20s. I was in my final year in the university. But along the line, during that time, just like a young boy, I was virtually playing football. I had this career of becoming a footballer.
Okay.
But
you had an idol then?
Yes, I had idols. I had a lot of idols, and I was also in some of the major national teams.
Okay.
I was close there. So when I saw the way former military dictator Babangida was running the country, I realized that you can only play football or you can only thrive in an environment where there is peace and orderliness. Because I saw a leader who was pushing the country to the brink of war. A leader whom the country never knew. A lot of Nigerians came out and said, we don't even know where we are going. And he was promoting all the evil vices you can think about in this world. Things, so you don't seem to be jumping the gun.
The election itself, can you say a little something about
Yes, I was in the university, and lo and behold, when the day of election came, I came out like every young person, every voter, sorry.
You cast your ballot?
I didn't cast my ballot.
Okay.
Because as a member of the civil society movement, we had this understanding that dictator Ibrahim Badamasi was only taking us for a ride, that he was not going to leave office.
Okay.
So I came to
you had a way of preempting him.
Yes, we knew one of our greatest leaders then was Mr. Alawa Kabashorun.
Okay.
Alawa Kabashorun, a barrister, former NBA president, SCN. And even late Chief Gani Fahmi, who told us that when Babangida tells you good morning, you need to leave your room to go and look at the sky to be sure it is really morning. So on that day, I saw people with the enthusiasm. I voted in Ado Ekiti. I was in Ado Ekiti, sorry. in front of, I will mention it so that people who are conversant with that area, we call it Adebayo, around Microfab. The polling station was close to Chief Olowora Palace. People queued up to vote for, because it was option A4.
Yeah.
Open ballot.
Open ballot, yeah.
So they will tell you we only had two parties then, SDP and NRC. People queued up to vote for, people who want to vote for NRC will be on one side, people who want to vote for SDP will be on one side. And I saw the friendliness, the joviality, and it was such that people I knew who wanted to vote for NRC, when they saw how long the SDP queue was, they started shifting. So by the time we knew it, you could count the number of those who were going to vote for the NRC.
And for that matter, count those who voted for the SDP.
Yes.
Otherwise, the results were known there and then.
There and then, yes. Everybody knew the results.
Just a minute. Martins, thank you for your patience. But
thank you.
To a 32-year-old Nigerian, the June 12th saga sounds like a fairy tale.
Yes, it will sound like a fairy tale, but that is why we are advocating that people should take history very seriously. Now, but they scrapped it at a time.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe
deliberately?
Well, definitely the answer is blowing in the wind. So, it sounds like a fairy tale, and I think our young ones need to know where we are coming from. Even if we don't know where we are going, we should know that somebody has written a book on it and is just stirring emotions about what happened to us, what happened to our democracy, and where the rain started beating us.
I remember that personally.
Yes.
I had a tiff, a small quarrel with my wife because we agreed in the house who to vote for. I sold the dummy. I said to her, and even though I was behind her on the same line,
yes,
I voted for the SDP candidate at the time. I told her I voted for the NRC, and it was going to stay a quarrel. I said, no, but I'm teasing you.
So, the story of how the rain started beating us.
Yeah.
Where it began in 1993 here, just 32 years ago. And I was already a newspaper editor at that time. I was, since December 1991, I was I was the second editor of the first newspaper in Abuja. Then Abuja Newsday, set up by Alhaji Bukazama is alive. And the chairman, Hassan Adamu, who was chairman of the NAFCON, a major fertilizer company in Nigeria at that time, in One and Port Harcourt.
Okay.
And then he was chairman of Abuja City Press Limited, publisher of Abuja News. I was the second editor. The first editor, Nick Dazank, retired from INEC not too long ago as the director of voter education, was the pioneer editor of the newspaper. So we witnessed all these things. This June 12th thing. And when, that some of the military aides of the then chief of army staff and others, Addis Abacha, were coming to our office. I don't want to start mentioning their names and all those things. We also published a lot of stories around happenings at that time. We began with even this Yaradua, the late Shehu Musa Yaradua, who participated in some of the primaries. Our newspaper predicted that he was going to win the primary, and he actually did. He beat all these giants like even
Bashir Tofa?
No, before that time, the platform of when they asked SDP, Social Democratic Party, and all those Olufalaye and Jack Ande and all those people who participated, he beat all of them.
Yes,
we predicted it in Abuja Newsday that he was going to beat them from the data and some parameters and what chest we saw around him and all those things. Then they annulled all those things like that, and then the two-party system that was decreed, this NRC and SDP, and they even built headquarters for them.
The two-party structure didn't raise any.
It didn't raise any
eyebrow.
Any eyebrow. It
No-
was the,
no rancor.
No rancor. It was the management of the election outcome that became problematic.
And remember that then we had a 30-state structure.
30 states structure,
And
yes.
both SDP and NRC had, headquarters in the 36
States. And they had headquarters.
in local governments.
30 states, yes. And the local governments and others, they built for them.
And a certain Dasuki got the contract.
Yes, it doesn't matter now who got the contract, but the outcome of that election
okay.
became problematic. And then there were certain things that we recall that they made them to even close down our newspaper. You know, why the June?
Who closed down the newspaper?
It was
the government of
the
the
government
day.
of the day, the government of the
IBB.
military President Babangida when the late Chukwumerije, one of those that have died too. We never can tell so many people.
Aye.
Chukwumerije was the information
Minister.
Secretary.
Yes, secretary.
Yeah,
And
there
then
were
they-
secretaries there.
Yes, they just they closed down the newspaper. We published 2 stories. One, in the midst of this June 12 crisis, very interesting stories we published in Abuja Newsday. We published first that IBB's daughter and Abiola's son were having some romance in the midst of June 12 crisis.
Were romantically involved.
Involved.
Public
While
knowledge.
these people were burning tires and doing all sorts of things in Lagos and others.
Rather reminds me of when General Yakubu Gowon got married,
Yes,
even when the war
where it was
going.
on. So then we also published a story that on a day that SDP National Executive Council members were going to meet in Benin, a day before that, IBB actually called Abiola to see him inside Aso Villa, and they met, and we published a story while they were in Benin. That Wednesday, we published a story that IBB, MKO in secret meeting. I remember this thing about the quality of disclosure. When you have good story, your medium will be popular or whatever we are saying about all this thing. Let me tell you an interesting story about this edition. Because we were circulating in Lagos, we were circulating in most places like that by air. We just carry the newspaper.
City centers.
City center. When a particular person couldn't get a copy of the newspaper in Lagos, he heard about the content. IPP and MKO on a secret meeting in Abuja. He had Concorde Airline.
I recall.
He had Concorde, private jet. Concorde.
And Concord newspaper.
Concorde newspaper too. So he was in Abuja. We got the whole story. We published it. So that particular person couldn't get, and then we didn't have GSM. They used this fixed line to call our office in Abuja, whether it was true that we published a story like this, and they said that, say yes, okay. At that time, flight from Abuja to Lagos was about 250 naira. 250 naira. So that person asked if he could get a copy of the newspaper.
Nelson, true, with due deference to late Professor Chinua Achebe, there was a country.
That was a country.
There was a country.
So the person asked if he could get a copy in our office at number 214 Fort Lamy Street in Wuse Zone 6, Abuja. We said yes. So the person put a personal assistant on the flight from Lagos to Abuja just to get a copy of the newspaper. He would like to see a newspaper that published a story that IPP and MKO
were in a secret
meeting last night. And the person we looked at our file. I was the editor. I removed a copy and gave the person. We didn't sell it, and he returned to Lagos to meet his, just because of that story. He put somebody on a flight. So these are things that happened before that time. I was
32 years ago.
Yes, because of that story. IBB and IBB's daughter and Abiola's son.
Aishat.
Yes, Aishat. I'm telling you,
Aishat
I was arrested.
Aishat Babangida.
I was arrested by the DSS officer. The rest is history. So they later. So the story It's just why I say it's a book. We haven't seen the book.
It is a book.
It's a book, not a book. Not a book. So a lot of actors have been neglected in the writing of these stories like that. We are talking about, they didn't mention Professor Humphrey Nwosu. Who mentioned even the build-up to June 12? Who mentioned CLO?
CD. Campaign for Democracy.
Campaign for Democracy.
Yes. Civil Liberties Organization.
Yes.
Bekor
and all those said the campaign for this campaign. All this. When all those young people, I will tell them, some of the actors, all this.
Do you remember Anna Bimbola Davis?
Yes, Bimbola Davis, yes.
Association for Better Nigeria.
Although even before those ones, when Olisa Agba Koba and co set up CLO, did anybody remember how many young people will remember the role that they played in the build up to even campaigning for democracy?
Yeah.
How they just to get some civic competence here and there. So when we are talking about this June 12th election was just an event, but that election was a process that began before 1993.
Absolutely.
Did anybody remember the election that was cancelled in 1991? Did anybody remember now that there was supposed to be an election to elect the mayor of Abuja, which even Aihomu announced one day that they cancelled it, that there was not going to be election to when this
election of a mayor.
Yeah, a mayor. I remember even all the two candidates that emerged from NRC and SDP had died. One Adamu Shuaibu on the platform of NRC was the mayoral candidate, and then Ibrahim Tukura was one SDP candidate for the mayoral election that they eventually cancelled in that election. And a lot
and
of
citizens, just when you talk about Professor Humphrey Nwosu, you should not forget that why Nigerians embrace the two-party system that was being funded, by the federal government.
Yeah.
And they built a party secretariat in all the local governments in Nigeria. Was because as at 1993, Nigerians had gotten fed up. They just wanted IBB out of our political life. So anything, could go. And also, when you're talking about heroes, I think you must not forget persons like Professor Emiawa, who was the predecessor of Professor Humphrey Nwosu. Those were electoral umpire heads who called the bluff of Babangida then, and they were eased out until he found a compliant Professor Humphrey Nwosu. Because if it had been Professor Emiawa,
a seeming compliant.
No, it was a compliant, not even a seeming. Because I remember I was at a function and Professor Emiawa told us verbatim that as the electoral head, former military dictator Babangida told him to go and announce the removal of an elected member of the elected chairman of the local government. And he told him he doesn't have the powers under the constitution to do that. And that he was not going to do it.
So we had Nigerians who could stand up to...
Absolutely. You also saw in 2023, when former President Olusegun Obasanjo went on air to advise the sitting President Muhammadu Buhari to annul the 2023 presidential election, knowing fully well that President Buhari does not have the powers under the law, unlike what General Babangida did on June 24, 1993, through a statement, an unsigned statement.
Nelson, but you give Martins knows that you excuse Babangida because he was a self-styled military president. Of course, all he needed have done was to annul the election by fiat of a military order.
No, but you and I know that what military dictator Babangida did, of which it is public knowledge, even though a lot of the things, I've just got an e-copy of the book that I'm going to read. But from the snippets I've read so far, as a student of history, as a key participant in the struggle in the last almost 35 years, a lot of those things he wrote in the book are things the average Nigerian who was alive and who was politically conscious knew about. We are all aware that that military dictator Babangida never wanted to leave the scene. He wanted to transmute. That was why he was the first military head of state to change his own appellation from head of state
in
to
Africa.
In Nigeria.
Okay.
We have always had head of state and commander-in-chief. We had the Gowon, we had the Muhammadu Buhari, we had the Muritala, we had the Olusegun Obasanjo. But when Babangida came, he started with military presidents. Babangida started...
There was no challenge.
There was no challenge because, he was the gap-toothed, smiling general.
Martins, you recall that Babangida enjoyed a lot of goodwill.
Yeah.
People thought he meant well.
Yes.
You know that World Bank has been talking in recent years in their publications about civic competence. I'm not too sure that we have achieved civic competence, that to have a kind of public enlightenment, to have the kind of consciousness and knowledge of what we are even doing or what we engage in. And the way poverty has shaped us and our thinking and our lifestyle. And we, most of the time, hail some of the people who actually make us to be what we are today.
Yeah.
And this thing reminds me of some accounts.
I remember, as an aside, I remember the Guardian of Your, the notice in Nelson on the door to the newsroom. Don't make us sob, S-O-B,
yes.
while sobbing.
While sobbing, yes. While doing sub-editing.
Don't make us, make us shed tears.
Yes. So, when, in the main, when we are talking about this story, I remember the account of the late General Chris Ali, a former Chief of Army Staff. Even at that time, he was also removed because of his own stand on June 12th. By Abacha.
Remember
he wrote a book.
One of the so-called Babangida boys.
Yes.
The Lieutenant Colonel Kaduna.
Kangiwa.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So he wrote a book, Chris Ali, Federal Republic of the Nigerian Army. I have a copy of the book. That all we have been nurturing the Federal Republic of the Nigerian Army.
We have come far.
We have come far. So when you look at the account of this book, you will see how we have been serving. It was a military election, military political parties, military government, military thinking, military everything till tomorrow.
We have not quite
No, Federal Republic. But let me tell you something about an actor all of us have forgotten. Inside INEC at that time, I told you I was very mature as a journalist. I was a newspaper editor. I was a Colonel Abdullahi Wase, who was the director of
the man who had the guts
and supply
to slap late Humphrey Wosu.
Yeah, wow.
He was the former military administrator of Kano State.
Kano State. Yeah. So what got him that posting was the collapse of June 12th. And his service on June 12th, he was the director of logistics and supply who was going to INEC office within the context of this Federal Republic of Nigerian Army. As a director in INEC, he was going to the office from military intelligence. These were the people who procured election materials and some of those things. Who actually objected to that kind of thing at that time? So these were the people monitoring Humphrey Nwosu, who saw everything, who was giving intelligence on what was happening, whether you are deconstructing or deconstructing whatever you were saying about whether the man wanted to go or he didn't want to go. They set up structures to monitor whatever was happening. Abdullahi Wase, after the collapse, he was posted by Abacha to Kano as military administrator.
He was the director general of NYC at the point in time.
So these were the people, and the man died in a plane crash.
Yes,
as governor. He was actually the person who took this chairman of the party, Ganduje, as a director in FCT. As he was going to Kano, he took him along to be commissioner for works, housing and transport in Kano. And after, when he died, they posted Dominic Oneya to that place, and he retained Ganduje. When they moved on to
Benue man.
Benue man. When they moved Oneya to Benue, when they moved him to
He
Benue.
later became NFA chairman.
Yes. When they moved into Benue as a military administrator, when kind of people complained that they wouldn't like Christian, they moved into Benue. Then they posted one Kontagora and they retained this same Ganduje. He was under 3 military administrators before he became deputy to Kwakwanso. So all these things like that, people have forgotten. Nobody ever mentioned the role of such
all right.
military officers.
Thank you for that. Nelson, there are many cutaways in this June 12 saga so that the 32-year-old could be in tandem with us. Many, the cutaways, I'm looking at something like SAP, Structural Adjustment Program, and related matters. So Babangida introduced SAP. The IMF was going to give us some money, but asked that we do certain things, the conditionalities and so on.
Yes, like we have always known, except for those who were born within 32 years. When IBB came into power, IBB made it known to us that his predecessor, just like in the Bible, you remember the story of Absalom, that he flogged us with a scorpion. But IBB told us that he was going to give us milk.
Koboko.
No, that he is a benevolent leader. So Nigerians embraced IBB because people saw
him as a...
He came as a savior.
Far cry. Okay.
Yeah, they saw the Muhammadu Buhari and the Diagmo regime as too authoritarian because of the strictness to discipline.
Yeah, but you and I know that for the 18 months they were in power,
yes,
there was a measure of
progress, a measure of sanity in the Nigerian society,
and especially in the civic space.
Yes, in the civic space.
We did not jump queues.
Yeah, there were a lot of things we couldn't do.
Sanity returned.
Yes, sanity returned to the Nigerian chaotic environment. So lo and behold, military dictator Babangida came with his gap smile, and at the end of the day, he left us in tears, blood, and sorrow. And even the SAP you talked about, when IMF gave the conditionalities, Babangida organized a talk shop.
Yeah.
Just to keep Nigerians busy.
Under then effervescent Jeremiah
Jerry Ghana. If you want to direct well, Mamsa. Yeah. So Babangida kept us talking. Nigerians were like, oh, this is the first time we are seeing a military.
This is a Daniel come to judgment.
Yes, a Daniel come to judgment is allowing us to hear our voice, not knowing that the man had other ulterior intentions. That was how he embraced the SAP, and it led to crisis all over the country. You remember the SAP riots? Nigerian students took to the streets.
Oh, yeah. From north to south.
From north to south.
To west.
Yes, east to west. So Babangida foray in our political life did us incalculable damage.
All right. Just pause there. Martin, and then whether or not you like it, suddenly journalist Dele Giwa was bombed out of existence.
Yes.
On October 18, 1986.
Yes.
And the question lingered for many, many moons.
Till tomorrow.
Who killed Dele Giwa?
Yeah.
Until Newswatch was decreed out of existence.
Definitely, the question still lingers. Who killed Dele Giwa? The book didn't answer any question.
Or a book.
A book that has just been released is still evading the question. But then,
and 32-year-olds
32
in Nigeria don't even know there was a Dele
Giwa, and they will not know. But it just remains like a mystery, like so many other big deaths. who killed Bola Ige.
Unsolved murders.
Yes, unsolved murders. Who killed Bola Ige?
There was a Bagada too.
Yeah, Bagada Kato. Who killed
There was
Bagada
Alfred Rewane.
There are many.
Assassination
So many.
Alex Ibru.
One Dokubo,
Harry Marshall.
Harry Marshall.
Yeah.
And so many other deaths
So many.
like that.
Yes.
Who continue to who killed them.
Harry Marshall.
Will
There are
never.
many.
Once you try to get somebody like this, the person will wriggle out. Who killed? There was a politician that was also killed in Lagos. Funshaw Williams. Who
Yeah.
killed Funshaw? All those questions like that will continue to linger, like that
There was
of
a
Delegewa
politician, Dia,
Dia.
in Ogun State.
in Ogun State.
Yes,
Yes,
Dipo Dino.
Dipo Dino.
rather.
Yes.
Dipo Dino, yeah.
Yes, so many of them like that.
Around the country.
All those questions will continue to linger within the context of Federal Republic of the Nigerian Army. Because we are still, when they gathered, when they began to speak, when this book was launched, you saw them. You saw them. Began to dish out.
So are we to say here and now that the book A Journey in Service by former military president Ibrahim Badamasi Babangida has left many questions unanswered?
Yeah, definitely, he has left many questions unanswered. I said that in a good country where knowledge is power, where they see knowledge as something that we should worship and that we should use to develop the society, many more books will come out immediately.
Okay.
Some of the people who are writing angrily, they will just work with some publishers. Before you know it, they bring their thoughts. It becomes a book. It becomes one of the books. It's a book. You find another book, another book. What he is talking now about the struggle for democracy will become a book. What I am talking about, I'll give context to some of those things that happened within that period. It comes as a book. But it is not in our character like that to continue to write books.
So
It's not in our character.
Citizen,
Yeah.
I think it is not enough for us to just say that former military dictator Babangida's book has left many questions unanswered.
okay.
It is appropriate for us to also re-emphasize here that former military dictator Babangida's book was an attempt to distort and rewrite history. Because we were all...
Like a revisionist at work.
Yes, a revisionist at work. Because there were some basic truths and facts that he tried to deflect.
Martins, do you remember the 12 point something
$12.4 billion Gulf oil windfall.
He has tried to explain that.
He is still the same way. He himself has granted so many interviews on the same thing, on the same question. He's still a rehash of what he himself has said, what others have written about the same issue. The question linger, where was the money? Even one before that one, about 8 billion naira under Buhari, the question was never answered whether it was missing or not missing before the one of 12.4 in dollars. So all these questions concerning our public finance system under our leaders,
so
we never get answers to them.
Is it therefore germane to say Babangida inherited a country that had a lot of opportunities to rise and shine?
Absolutely. Babangida inherited a country with huge prospects. And the June 12 election, in the midst of all that, was also an opportunity.
If you allowed the
because
election to go.
It was the first time Nigerians spoke with one voice across ethnic and religious divide. Don't forget, in the June 12 election, we had an MK Abiola, a Yoruba man, a Muslim from Ogun State, with a deputy presidential candidate, Babagana Kingibe, a Muslim from Borno State.
Even when the Muslim ticket was used as a way of
dividing us.
That's it.
And they filed MK Abiola, a Muslim, Babagana Kingibe, a Muslim, against Bashir Tofa, a Muslim, and Sylvester Ugo, a Christian. But Nigeria said no.
Yeah, but Martins here will not quarrel with the fact that a Muslim ticket did not mean anything, because Jakonde was Muslim.
Jafojo was Muslim. Yes.
So it didn't matter.
At that time, people, politicians had not.
Is it politicians or even the society?
Wisened up.
Politicians had not started weaponizing religion and some other fault lines as they are doing
Martins,
today.
even in Ondo State,
Yes.
we had a Adekunle Ajasin as Christian, Akinomo Boriwo, a deputy governor, as Christian.
Yes.
The
So,
two Michaels.
In Oyo State, we had a Bola Ige as governor Christian. The deputy governor then was also a Christian.
So nobody cared.
Nobody
about all
cared
these
where
things,
you came from, where you come
identity,
from.
Society. No, as he was saying, to underline something, the way African Guardian put it, I remember it as if it were yesterday, that an election that threatened to unite Nigeria, that threatened. Yes.
Underline threatened.
Yes. So, and then it was annulled because look at the facts. Muslim ticket, no complaint. The election, and even the way they were releasing the election at that time, we didn't have this kind of technology.
30,
everybody had the results.
Everybody had results.
30 states. First, they released the results of 16 states.
That was where they stopped.
Abiola cleared 14 of the 16.
Yes.
And the remaining 14 states,
yes.
Abiola cleared 9.
Yes.
So what were you going?
Nobody.
Were you going to abort that pregnancy?
Court cases and all those things like that. Zeribe was allowed. Everybody was allowed to just do whatever they could do to just destroy everything.
But again, do you think the fourth estate of the realm was a guilty party? If you recall that the one of us, Ndukai Rabo, the spokesman of the
vice president then
issued the letter, an undated letter
and
unsigned, authorizing the
annulment. You know that Ndukai Rabo was not doing that one because he was a pressman. He was a spokesperson that was authorized at that time, an employee of
the government
of the day,
military government.
Yeah, military government of the day. So they asked him to do that.
He had no choice.
He had no choice. He had no choice, and you haven't served these people. They give you something after you have, when you are eating, you are not supposed to talk.
Because you get choked.
You get choked like that. Don't talk. So it was not because he was a media person. We had lent him to.
Okay. He was doing his job.
He was doing his job. It was in a line of duty when he announced that.
All right, folks. We cannot exhaust any and everything about the June 12th saga in one breath. The debate continues. But I want to thank Nelson Ekujimi for your time.
Thank you very much for having me.
And Martin Onoja for your intervention.
Thank you very much.
Let the debate continue. But I do know that history and posterity will be the final judge. Do you think Babangida, in releasing his memoirs, A Journey in Service, recently, which raked in over 17 billion naira, was him trying to come to equity? Do you believe everything in the book? Has he left more questions unanswered? Thank you for watching. Bye-bye now.
Point. I want to raise a second point that is not so controversial, but it's also very critical to what we are discussing. The first is to go back to Archbishop Desmond Tutu's 2011 collection in a volume entitled God is Not a Christian. This is a 2011 book edited by John Allen, and it raised a lot of dust, in the church. This is Archbishop Desmond Tutu, who was Archbishop of Cape Town, a revered leader in the Anglican fold, daring to say that God is not a Christian. One of the reviewers of that book cited the Acts of the Apostles chapter 10 and verse 35, where Peter opened his mouth to say, I perceive now that God is not a respecter of persons. But in every nation where one person is to be found, God will bless that person. Now, what was Tutu's point? You know, we all are Christians. It's good to enjoy our fellowship. But we enjoy our fellowship to the extent that we think the outside world is not part of our fold. And that's a fundamental error. Now, imagine that you went into a pharmacy and you wanted to buy paracetamol. I'm sure you would say, where's the one manufactured by a Christian? Now think of it. You know, or you're going to fly, you know, this plane, and you say, is the pilot a Christian? Now, how many times do we stop to ask those questions? We never do. We carry on because the God that we serve is not a respecter of persons, does not discriminate at all. And therefore, the gifts that we all have of men, they are God-authored. Every one of us here, you know, can relate to that. So Desmond Tutu was not wrong, but his point was the righteousness that comes from God is superior to all other forms of so-called righteousness. In fact, outside of God, there cannot be righteousness.